Hey everybody, Mike here with another top list for you. This was actually suggested by a YouTube commenter. This is my list of the top 20 games that are solo only for a single player. No competitive version, no cooperative play, one player and one player only. And hopefully this disclaimer isn't necessary, but this is just my opinion, my list. If your favorite game isn't on here, it's more likely that I haven't played it rather than I don't like it, so keep that in mind. But let's get right to it and check out my top 20 solo only games. So first at number 20 is the Wars of Marcus Aurelius. This is a Hollenspiel game, and this is a pretty fun solo-only war game. It's got card-driven mechanics, interesting card choices. It's kind of a back and forth between you and the Germanic tribes, which can be a little bit frustrating because it can kind of feel like you push and then you pull, and they can even like pop back on lucky dice rolls after you've fully defeated a tribe, which can like totally undo all of your work for a large portion of the game. So that's why this one is not ranked higher. I think the card-driven choices are really interesting. I think it's a solid, tense game, but I do find the swinginess of the luck, while historical, to be a little bit frustrating sometimes. So Wars of Marcus Aurelius, definitely a solid solo war game, but only at number 20 for this list. Then at number 19 for me is Deep Space D6. This is a fun, very light dice placement game. You basically have these different spaceships, and you're activating different stations on your ship with some mitigation, like not a ton, but some mitigation. And you're trying to fight off these different little enemy fighters and eventually fight the big boss. And the game can be really goofy, really fun. Certainly you can have some awesome moments. I remember in this game that I think I filmed, I had like a horrific moment with dice where everything went wrong. But at the same time, I found even with the different spaceships, it does get a little bit repetitive, a little bit samey, so it didn't have super long-term playing power for me. But still, I think this is a great one to try out. It's a lot of fun, very light, quick, but the dice placement is still pretty interesting, and the different ships are fun to play with. So that's Deep Space D6 at number 19. Next at number 18, we have a bag builder, Coffee Roaster. And this is another one that I feel like doesn't have enough variety game to game to keep my interest. Pretty much the only thing that changes up are like the coffee blends and your difficulty level, which is fine. I do like bag builders, and this is a fun one. I know it's a favorite for many people. Again, I didn't find it like held my interest for forever, but it's definitely a slick, well done, streamlined design. The kind of push your luck choices are pretty interesting. And yeah, this one is certainly solid for a nice quick bag builder. That is Coffee Roaster at number 18. Next at number 17 is Black Sonata. This is a solo-only deduction game where you're trying to figure out who Shakespeare's Dark Lady is. And it's got this really cool system where like these cards kind of control where the Dark Lady is traveling to each turn. And it has like this cool way that you kind of find out when you're guessing like whether she's actually been there or not. But yeah, if you like hidden movement games, this is one of the coolest ones because it is a solo-only hidden movement game, which is super impressive to achieve. Although at this point, it's not as unique because now you've got things like Mind Management that has like an app to do solo-only deduction or cooperative deduction. Or you've got Sniper Elite with solo where you're the one trying to not be found, although I would say Black Sonata works out better than that solo mode. But yeah, this is still a really great game. It's a very tight, small package. And with the expansion, the Fair Youth expansion, the like play options and difficulty variants go up through the roof. So I definitely recommend that one if you get it. But Black Sonata, number 17. Great game. Next at number 16, it's back to War Game in Town. This is Thunderbolt Apache Leader. This is one of the more detailed games in the Dan Verson Leader series games because like you're actually like moving around on a map like this and kind of controlling your altitude high and low and stuff like that. This game is a ton of fun. Like the tactical combat is really pretty interesting and exciting. It is, like many Dan Verson games, like the graphic design is not necessarily the best. It has a lot of luck in dice rolling. The art is a little bit questionable. The rulebook can be a little bit confusing. But once you get through all of that, there's one of, for example, Liz Davidson's favorite solo games of all time. And I think it's a ton of fun too. Just this combat system is like really exciting. The choices for like your loadouts and which kind of planes you bring, what kind of missiles you fight, and the variety and how the campaign plays out. Really cool. So that's Thunderbolt Apache Leader number 16. And at number 15, we have a much more recent one. I think this one just is delivering now. This is Legacy of Ooh. And this one is a solo-only campaign-based Euro game where like you're slowly unlocking new opposing cards and new helping cards. But the basic gameplay kind of stays the same. You're building buildings at the bottom. You're kind of getting your engine going. You're facing off against these enemy cards while also trying to control the flood and like build these levees or whatever they are ahead of stuff. So if you've played any Garfield games, like any of the West Kingdom series, for example, a lot of this is going to feel pretty familiar. I don't think it's necessarily like beating out those games or like going way beyond them in terms of like experimental ideas, but it's a really solid, fun Euro, and the solo mechanics work really well. The campaign and how you unlock things, like the little story elements that are in there. I wish they went a little bit farther with the unlocks and got a little bit more exciting, but they still are functional and fun to discover. So yeah, it was a really solid one, especially if you like Euros. That is Legacy of Ooh at number 15. And I guess I'm just in a new game mood for number 14 as well as number 15, because this one, number 14, is For Northwood, which is delivering right now. In fact, I'm basing this off of my prototype plays, but that's basically the final game, because my copy that I kickstarted for or crowdfunded for is coming, I think, next week. But this is a solo-only trick-taking game, and it does a really interesting kind of spin on that, in that it's not like most trick-takers where like you kind of take control of who leads the next card and stuff. It's kind of always a you go, I go thing with like this automatic AI deck. But the way like Trump suit is determined, the card play, all these little characters you can see and how they have like special powers, and then you can like kind of capture them and use special powers for yourself. All that is just lovely. This is a really like nice, smooth, quick game. I know the final release is supposed to have like a little scenario like pack additionally that like lets you kind of change up and try specific combinations to make the game harder or easier or different. So yeah, very excited by this one. I love trick takers in general, and having a really solid, interesting one that's solo only is great for me when I don't want to play, the crew or something else all the time. So that is For Northwood, my number 14. But at number 13, we're back to war games. There are a lot of great solo-only war games, as you can imagine. This one is In Magnificent Style. And this is a sort of like push your luckish game of the Civil War, where you are charging forward with your units and pretty much dying because you're supposed to lose this battle. But you can like try to move faster, but at the risk of overextending yourself and getting killed. This game is very random, but in like that fun, exciting cinematic way, in that the events that come out and like the crazy things that happen can make every game feel very unique, can give you like fun little stories in each game. But there are still a lot of like good choices, again, in that push your luck vein. Like, how far do I want to go? How much risk am I willing to expose myself to? If you go too slowly, then nothing's ever going to happen, and the events always keep you on your toes. So yeah, I think this is a really solid one. If you don't mind a lot of randomness and luck, can be a ton of fun. That is In Magnificent Style, my number 13. Okay, then at number 12, this one is a classic. This is Friday by Freeman Freeze. And if you haven't played this, this is a sort of like a deck builder. You're trying to survive on the island with Robinson Crusoe, and eventually you try to fight off some pirates. And this one has some really cool choices, because it's both like the culling and the deck building is handled through attacking these cards. And if you beat the card, you get it for your deck in sort of like a Heroes of Tennefer or other games that kind of do that sort of thing. But if you lose to the card, which you also want to do, it lets you cull the bad cards from your deck. So you want to kind of like have a fun mix of winning and losing. And it then has like some fun combos with card powers. Really enjoy this one. It's always a ton of fun. The thing that keeps it a little bit lower for me outside of my top 10 is that I do find that there's kind of like an ideal strategy, and then like it really depends on like luck whether you win or not. It's usually, not always, but mostly kind of obvious for me like which things I should do. But the gameplay is so good, and like those push your luck, or not push your luck, but those choices of like go for the attack or go for the damage and culling are so interesting that the game is still consistently fun. So really great game. Friday at number 12. Then at number 11, we've got Hostage Negotiator. So this is another one where randomness is going to potentially make you hate this one. You're rolling a ton of dice to see if your card succeeds or fails. You try to talk down this hostage taker. And there's also one where a lot of your enjoyment is going to depend on how much you buy, because there's a lot for the system. I'm ranking at number 11 with my favorite way to play, which is with the career expansion that kind of adds like a cool like campaign mode on, and has like consistent penalties and like drawbacks and things that go into the game, and gives it like way more variety. Because I do think the game needs variety. The hostage takers themselves give some, but there is a little bit of sameness in like the cards you can draft, which you're seeing right now, and sometimes you tend to pursue somewhat similar strategies. So the more you get from like the expansions or the career mode to kind of change that up and change up your calculus, the better. But still, this is a great one. There is another game that uses this system that's going to come a little bit later on the list. Some of you might already know what that is, but this one is still great. Hostage Negotiator, my number 11. And then finally getting to my number 10, we're starting out with Field Commander Napoleon. This is another war game from Danverson Games. It does have all the drawbacks I already mentioned about the graphic does not always being the best and about a lot of rolling. But this one is really cool. It has these great tactical battles, which we're seeing right now, and a huge variety in scenarios to kind of cover Napoleon's whole military career. Ones that like he can win easily, ones that are nearly impossible. So you can really like kind of tailor your experience that way. Like I said, these combats and dealing with like the random draw of tactics for the enemies and the random caprices of fate and rolling are really interesting and engaging. And kind of the like overworld, like bigger campaign management on top of that, and like how you move your units around is really cool. I love this one. This is the best in the Field Commander series that I played, at least. Number 10, Field Commander Napoleon. And at number 9, we have a solo-only dungeon crawl experience, which is Unbroken. This is a cool one in that you're flipping these encounter cards, and you're making these either-or choices, and it's like all these kind of like resource management like little choices, because you'll spend one thing to get something else, you'll spend that thing to get something else, you'll level up your weapons, you'll kind of prepare for the boss you're going to fight, and then it goes into these boss fights, which are very exciting, but then you go back to this like either-or kind of encounter system. And both of those modes work really well. It's a consistently tense game. It has a lot of variety, like even though you're seeing the same stuff, because this game had a pretty troubled publishing experience. So I don't know if there'll ever be any like official expansion or anything. But yeah, this is a great one if you can find a copy. Quick, pretty cheap game, at least it was originally. And just a lot of fun. That's Unbroken, my number 9. Then getting to my number 8, there's another very new one, Resist. This game is awesome. So this is, I guess, kind of a war game in a way. But basically, you're modeling the Spanish resistance in the Spanish Civil War, I guess. And you're making these choices. You're trying to like attack these different missions. And you're making these really cool choices in playing your own cards of whether you want to play them on their hidden side or on their revealed side. And the revealed side is way more powerful, but they get culled from your deck forever. So in a way, this is like a reverse culling game where you're trying to hold on to your cards as long as possible. So those choices are like where to attack, how to play your cards, how far to push, because eventually you'll be like very low and you might fail in your missions. Where to attack, I don't know. It's super yummy, like tactical choices, super like puzzly and interesting, consistently tense, but also you can play the entire thing in like 20, 30 minutes. This is just a triumph of like simple card design with a lot of theme and fun tactics in it. That is Resist, my number 8. And I guess this is a David Thompson double feature because he also designed this one, my number 7, which is Castle Inner. Although this is standing in for all of his Valiant Defender games, and it's really between Castle Inner and Landsrath Ridge, one of the first ones, and the most recent one, for which one is my favorite. I went for Castle Inner for now because I played it longer and loved it longer. This one has great variety in how the enemies come out, super tense choices in who you activate and how you defend. It's got this really interesting late game thing where you got to decide whether you want to try to flee with one of your people to try to get the reinforcements to come faster. And, this is Valiant Defenders games you're kind of supposed to lose because historically they lost. But Castle Inner is one of the ones that historically they actually won, which, is just kind of more fun for me. Better to have victory than crushing defeat be the expected result. Again, like basically all the war games I'm talking about, it has a lot of luck in rolling, but super tense gameplay, great variety like in the tactic cards and stuff. And again, if you're interested in the series, I would say Castle Inner and Landsrath Ridge are my favorite, but Soldiers and Postmen's Uniform and Pavlov's House, and I'm sure I'm forgetting one more, but they're all great, great games. So that's number 7, Castle Inner, or Landsrath Ridge, you pick. Then at number 6, another recent game to me, but man, I love it. I play this one so much. This is Rove, R.O.V.E. And this is a button-shy game, and it's all about tactical positioning and pattern creation. You play these cards for action points, then you're trying to complete these missions that have certain patterns, but if your little module cards are in the correct configuration, then the action cards you play actually will help you out more and give you more points, and each of the modules moves a little bit differently. They each have their own special ability. This is just catnip for me. I like these like spatial kind of tactics games. That's one of the reasons like Bullet is one of my favorites, and Rove is right up there. It's like a more streamlined, simpler version of Bullet for me. The choices and the tactics and the puzzliness are just amazing. It's button shy, so it's cheap. I don't need to say much more. You need to go get this game if you have any interest whatsoever. It is phenomenal. One of my top ones of the last couple of years for sure. That is Rove, R.O.V.E. from Button Shy, my number 6. Okay, and then number 5, I said it would return. This is Final Girl, which is a reimagining of the hostage negotiator core mechanics. And it does have some of the same issues, potentially. You can feel like sometimes you're buying the same cards. It does have a lot of luck in which dice you're rolling. You need to buy into the system more to have more variety. But that being said, if you're like me and you love horror movies, especially slashers with like that final girl trope, all the like callouts here are great. The variety in the killers and the locations you can play on, how you can mix and match them is a ton of fun. It is always tense, always exciting, even when you have games kind of go one way, swinginess one or the other. I went all in on the second season, so there's just so much to play, although, like I said, I spent a lot of money on it. But yeah, Final Girl, I think, is great. For me, it does eclipse Hostage Negotiator, even with the career mode. I just really like the spatial movement and like kind of the tactics of the boards and the locations with the killers. But both great games. This is my number 5, Final Girl. And speaking of another one that's going to cost you a bit to get the full experience, my number 4 is Hoplomachus Victorum. This is the solo-only chip theory campaign tactics game. And this is just awesome. Like, I have some minor complaints. You know, it has a lot of dice rolling. Not every event is, like, perfect. Some of, like, the Primus rules are a little bit weird. And, like, sometimes leveling your champion up is not that great. But besides that, this game is just friggin' awesome. I love the difference in the like arenas and the tactics there. I love the squad management, sort of XCOM style, like getting your units and trying to keep them alive. I love how the game like ramps up in really major ways as you unlock like more and more nasty creatures. How your character levels up, like the choices in like the different battles and how those change things up, and how your tactics become different each time. This is just, if you like tactical miniature, you know, war combat squad skirmish games, this one is awesome, as long as you don't mind a long campaign, because it goes a little while. That is Hoplomachus Victorum, my number 4. And then getting to my number 3, this is Isla and Something Shiny. I've raved about this one a lot. This is a like story-driven game that also uses kind of like the paleo mechanics, where you're like adding and subtracting cards from events. You got these different scenarios. This one has beautiful art, a beautiful story that affected me very emotionally. It's like somewhat kid-friendly, but not always. But I did play through with like all my family members, basically. And yeah, it in a way should have limited replay, because it is like a story-based thing, and there are several endings and there are difficulty modifiers. But I played through this one like 10 times because I love it so much. So if you like story games, if you like paleo, if you like interesting like resource choices, I think this one could be great. Hopefully one day, I don't know, hopefully they'll get it like a new distributor or a new publisher or a new edition. Right now it's very difficult to find, and it costs way too much. I wouldn't necessarily say to get it for those prices, but if it ever becomes more widely available, again, please look out for Isla and Something Shiny. That's my number 3. Then we're almost to the end. At my number 2 spot is Under Falling Skies. Oh man, I love this game. So this is a dice game where you are using dice to activate like spots in your base and do things to fight off the aliens. But every spot you activate moves the enemy ship in that same column down the same number of spaces, which just, oh man, it makes all the choices of this game so good. So good. Like, yeah, I mean, that is the entire game, and it's all it needs. But on top of that, in the like actual official retail release, you get a campaign mode that's great. You get so much like modularity and variety in like how you combine like cities and, you know, enemies and all these things. So it really, you know, for a very inexpensive game, it really punches way above its weight. It is an awesome experience. I love the tactical choices here. Under Falling Skies, my number 2, such a great solo game. And that finally brings us to my number 1. And again, this is only my number 1. You're allowed to have your own order and your own list. My number 1 is Warp's Edge. I love deck builders and bag builders, and this is one of the best, one of the just like most fun. Kind of like Friday that I mentioned earlier, this is one where when you defeat the enemies, that's like how you deck build, how you bag build. This one just has like really interesting choices, great variety in the ships and the bosses and how you phase those out. If you go into the expansions, it kind of raises up all those things even more. The latest Anomaly expansion even has like ways to make the game easier and harder in really cool ways. You get these skill cards when you like have the choices of who to attack and who to stun, and when you want to defeat somebody and how you want to defeat them, with the evasion and maneuvering or with laser blasts. I don't know. I might say Under Falling Skies is a bit more tactical, has a bit more decision to it, and has that cool campaign mode. But for like pure joy and fun and excitement, few games in my collection match up to Warp's Edge. And that's what puts it over the top to my number 1 true solo only spot, Warp's Edge. Love this game. So there you go, 20 games with quite a variety in price point and type of game. Hope you saw something you've enjoyed. And feel free to leave comments in the video for your favorite solo-only games that I might have missed. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.